If your wife's having an affair, that's my business, no matter what. Those explosive words from Kody Brown in the Season 20 Tell-All Part 4 trailer have set the Sister Wives fandom absolutely on fire. And folks, we are finally about to witness a reckoning that has been 10 years in the making. The Catfish scandal that nearly destroyed Meri Brown, the online deception that Kody and Robyn have used as a weapon for an entire decade, is finally being dragged back into the spotlight. And this time, Robyn is not hiding behind carefully constructed narratives or conveniently timed tears. Let me be brutally honest here. When TLC announced they would be revisiting the infamous 2015 Catfish fiasco, longtime viewers collectively gasped. This is not just rehashing old drama for ratings. This is an excavation of the exact moment when the Brown family began its irreversible descent into dysfunction. Robyn Brown sat in that tell-all chair and declared with absolute conviction that she did absolutely nothing wrong and that she had Meri's back through the entire ordeal. The audacity of that statement, given everything we have witnessed since, is genuinely staggering. But here is where it gets truly interesting. Meri has spent years quietly maintaining a very different version of events. She has hinted, suggested, and occasionally stated outright that Robyn's so-called help made everything infinitely worse. 2 women, 1 scandal, and 2 completely contradictory accounts of what actually happened during one of the most vulnerable periods of Meri's life. Someone is not telling the truth, and the receipts are finally being examined under a microscope. Sources close to production say this tell-all segment was particularly tense to film. One insider described the atmosphere as absolutely electric with unresolved resentment. Another person familiar with the situation noted that Robyn seemed genuinely shocked that anyone would question her version of events after all this time. And honestly, that reaction alone tells you everything you need to know about her level of self-awareness. She has been controlling this narrative for so long that she apparently forgot other people were actually there when it happened. What viewers thought they understood about the Catfish scandal is about to be completely reframed. The standard story has always been poor Meri got tricked, she made a mistake, and the family rallied around her. But the real question, the one that has haunted this family for a decade, is not whether Meri was catfished. Everyone agrees that happened. The real question is, what exactly did Robyn do with the information she gathered while supposedly watching out for her sister wife? And the answer to that question might explain everything that followed. The decision to revisit a scandal from 2015 might seem like desperate ratings bait to casual viewers, but for those who have followed this family closely, TLC's timing makes perfect sense. During the tell-all discussions, it became clear that these pivotal moments from nearly a decade ago dictated the route they went on, which was south. That is not speculation, that is directly from conversations happening in this very reunion special. The Catfish scandal was not just an embarrassing moment that the family moved past, it was the crack in the foundation that eventually brought the entire house down. Let us set the stage properly, because context matters here. In 2014, Meri Brown was experiencing what can only be described as an emotional earthquake. After more than 2 decades as Kody's legal wife, she agreed to divorce him on paper so he could legally marry Robyn and adopt her 3 children from a previous marriage. On the surface, this was framed as a selfless act of sisterhood. In reality, Meri was signing away the only legal protection she had in a family structure that offered her precious little security to begin with. During this incredibly vulnerable period, Meri found herself drawn into an online relationship with someone she believed to be a man named Sam Cooper. The catfisher, later revealed to be a woman named Jackie Overton, targeted Meri with flowers, texting, music, and flirting during her darkest moments. For weeks, possibly months, Meri was being emotionally manipulated by a complete stranger who had identified her as the perfect mark. Isolated, insecure, and feeling replaced in her own family, Meri was desperately seeking validation from anyone who would provide it. Sources who were around during this period describe Meri as being in an incredibly fragile state. One person familiar with the situation said she was basically invisible in her own home, and this catfisher made her feel seen for the first time in years. Another insider put it more bluntly, noting that Kody had already emotionally checked out of his relationship with Meri long before the catfish situation gave him an excuse to do so officially. The manipulation Meri experienced was predatory, calculated, and timed to exploit her at her absolute lowest point. But here is the part that makes this story so much more complicated than a simple tale of online deception. While Meri was being manipulated by a stranger on the internet, someone much closer to home was watching everything unfold. Someone who claims she was trying to help. Someone whose version of helping looks remarkably different depending on who you ask. The catfisher may have initiated the contact, but the fallout, the lasting damage, the permanent fracturing of trust within the family, that has Robyn Brown's fingerprints all over it. And what she admitted to doing during this tell-all raises serious questions about whose interest she was actually protecting. Robyn Brown made a stunning admission during the tell-all that has viewers absolutely reeling. She openly stated that she was sitting there watching everything that was happening with Meri's online conversations. Let that sink in for a moment. Robyn was not passively aware that something was going on. She was actively monitoring the situation, watching Meri's vulnerable communications unfold in real time. The question that immediately springs to mind is, how exactly did Robyn have such detailed access to what was happening, and why did she choose surveillance over direct sisterly intervention? According to Robyn's account, her response to witnessing this manipulation was to go to Kody and tell him to get your butt over there and figure this out with her, because she is being taken advantage of. On the surface, this sounds reasonable enough. A concerned sister wife alerting the shared husband to a problem so he can address it with his struggling spouse. But let us be brutally honest here. If your primary concern was helping Meri, would your first instinct really be to run to the husband she was clearly feeling disconnected from, rather than talking to her directly yourself? Robyn claims she did eventually confront Meri face to face. She says she approached her and asked point blank what this conversation was that she was having and why she was talking to this person. The framing here is fascinating. Robyn presents herself as the protective friend, the loyal sister wife who stepped up when she saw a family member heading toward disaster. She wants viewers to see her as the hero of this story, the one person who tried to intervene before things spiraled completely out of control. But sources who were present during this period paint a very different picture. One insider described Robyn's so-called interventions as more interrogation than support. Another person familiar with the family dynamics noted that Robyn seemed more interested in gathering information than actually helping Meri navigate out of the situation. The difference between those two approaches is everything. One is sisterhood, the other is intelligence gathering for strategic advantage. What makes Robyn's account particularly difficult to swallow is the timing and the pattern. This was not happening in a vacuum. This was happening immediately after Meri had sacrificed her legal wife status so Robyn could have it instead. The ink on those divorce papers was barely dry, and suddenly Robyn is positioned as Meri's primary confidant and support system while simultaneously reporting everything back to Kody. If that is not a conflict of interest, I genuinely do not know what qualifies as one. And Meri remembers these helpful interventions in a way that suggests they felt a lot less like rescue missions, and a lot more like betrayals. Meri Brown has not been silent about how Robyn's involvement actually impacted her during the Catfish nightmare, and her account stands in stark contrast to the heroic narrative Robyn has been pushing. In 2015, when the scandal first became public knowledge, Meri directly accused Robyn of making the situation worse by allegedly reporting back to their then-shared husband Kody. That accusation was not made in the heat of the moment. It was a considered statement about what she experienced from someone she thought she could trust. The distinction Meri maintains is crucial to understanding why this betrayal cut so deep. She leaned on Robyn during the darkest period of her life, expecting sisterhood and confidentiality. When you are struggling, when you are vulnerable, when you are making mistakes that you know will haunt you, you turn to the people you believe have your best interests at heart. Meri thought Robyn was that person. Instead, according to Meri, every conversation became ammunition, every confession became evidence, and every vulnerable moment became another nail in the coffin of her relationship with Kody. Meri was forced to make public statements about the Catfish situation that no one should ever have to make. She explicitly denied that any physical affair had occurred, stating clearly that she never met this person and that she regretted being drawn into this situation. The humiliation of having to explain and defend yourself against accusations stemming from an online deception, while your family seemingly stands in judgment rather than support, must have been absolutely crushing. Meri was the victim of a predatory catfisher, and somehow she ended up being treated like the perpetrator. Sources close to Meri describe her as feeling completely blindsided by how the family handled the aftermath. One person who spoke to her during this period said she genuinely believed Robyn was her friend, that Robyn was the one person who understood what she was going through. Another insider noted that Meri felt like she was set up to fail, like everything she shared in confidence was being used to construct a case against her. The paranoia that creates, the inability to trust anyone, follows you forever. What becomes increasingly clear when you examine Meri's side of the story is that Robyn's help may have served a very different purpose than simple sisterly concern. Every piece of information Robyn gathered, every conversation she monitored, every detail she reported back to Kody positioned her as the reliable wife, the trustworthy one, the partner whose loyalty could never be questioned. Meanwhile, Meri was being painted as unstable, unfaithful, and undeserving of her husband's attention or affection. The Catfish scandal did not just damage Meri's reputation within the family. It eliminated her as competition entirely, and if that was the outcome, we have to ask whether it was accidental or by design. Kody Brown entered the tell-all battlefield with guns blazing, and his target was anyone who might dare to question Robyn's version of events. His aggressive declaration in the trailer, insisting that an affair is his business no matter what, sets the tone for how he has chosen to frame the Catfish situation for an entire decade. He is not treating this as a vulnerable woman being manipulated by a predatory stranger. He is treating it as a full-blown betrayal that justified years of emotional punishment toward Meri. The stance Kody has taken is remarkable in its refusal to acknowledge any nuance. According to his interpretation, Meri's online conversations with someone she believed to be a potential romantic partner constitute an unforgivable transgression. Never mind that Meri was targeted specifically because she was emotionally abandoned in her marriage. Never mind that she never physically met this person. Never mind that she was the victim of a calculated deception. In Kody's world, the Catfish scandal is the get-out-of-jail-free card that excuses every ounce of neglect and dismissal he has directed at Meri since. What is particularly telling is how Kody and Robyn have weaponized this scandal in perfect synchronization. They present a united front that goes something like this. Meri cannot be trusted because of what happened in 2015, and Robyn was the only one who tried to help. This narrative serves both of their interests beautifully. Kody gets to justify his complete emotional withdrawal from Meri, and Robyn gets to position herself as the loyal, supportive partner who saw through Meri's deception when no one else did. Sources who have observed the family dynamics describe Kody's commitment to this narrative as almost pathological. One insider said he has convinced himself that he is the injured party in this situation, which is honestly delusional given everything Meri went through. Another person familiar with the couple noted that Kody seems to genuinely believe that Robyn saved him from Meri, which explains why he defends her so ferociously whenever anyone questions her motives. But fans who have watched this family for years are noticing a suspicious pattern that Kody seems determined to ignore. Every single major family conflict somehow ends with Robyn emerging as the hero, the victim, or both simultaneously. The Catfish scandal made Robyn look like the faithful, vigilant wife, while Meri was cast as the betrayer. The divorces from Christine, Janelle, and ultimately Meri all somehow reinforced Kody and Robyn's bond while destroying his relationships with everyone else. At some point, coincidence becomes pattern, and pattern becomes evidence. And what that evidence suggests about Robyn's role in the family's destruction is becoming impossible to ignore. Host Suki cut straight to the heart of the matter during the tell-all with a question that should have been asked years ago. After everything that has happened, she asked Robyn directly, "Do you not feel that Meri has any grounds to distrust you?" It was a simple question that deserved a thoughtful, self-reflective answer. What Robyn delivered instead was a masterclass in denial that has fans absolutely fuming. Robyn's response was emphatic and immediate. "I do not. I absolutely do not." There was no pause for reflection, no acknowledgement that reasonable people might see the situation differently, no recognition that Meri's pain and distrust might be valid even if Robyn disagrees with it. Just flat, complete denial that anything she did could possibly have contributed to the breakdown of trust with her sister wife. The confidence with which she delivered this answer suggests either profound delusion or calculated deflection, and viewers are not sure which option is more disturbing. But Robyn did not stop there. She followed up with an emotional statement that has become her signature defense mechanism. "If people want to say I did something wrong there, that is fine. I know what my intentions were." Let us unpack that for a moment because it reveals everything about how Robyn approaches accountability. She is essentially saying that her intentions matter more than the actual impact of her actions. She is saying that she gets to be the sole judge of whether her behavior was harmful. She is saying that Meri's experience and perspective are irrelevant because Robyn has decided she meant well. Folks, this is not how accountability works in any healthy relationship. You do not get to hurt someone and then declare yourself innocent because you did not mean to cause harm. Intentions matter. Absolutely, but so do outcomes. And the outcome of Robyn's involvement in the Catfish situation was the complete destruction of Meri's standing within the family, the permanent fracturing of her relationship with Kody, and a decade of being treated as an untrustworthy outsider in her own home. Those are not trivial consequences that get erased because Robyn insists her heart was in the right place. Sources close to the production described this particular tell-all moment as genuinely tense. One person who was present said Robyn seemed almost offended that anyone would question her version of events, like the idea that she might have done something wrong was simply incomprehensible to her. Another insider noted that her lack of self-awareness was shocking even to people who have watched this family for years. The internet, predictably, has had a very different interpretation of Robyn's intentions than the one she is selling, and the theories that have emerged about what she was really doing during the Catfish scandal are absolutely devastating to her carefully constructed image. The Sister Wives fandom has developed a comprehensive theory about Robyn's role in the Catfish scandal, and it is gaining traction with every new piece of evidence that emerges. The theory is straightforward but damning. Robyn used the Catfish situation to permanently damage Kody's relationship with Meri, thereby eliminating her as competition for his attention and affection. What might look like concerned intervention was actually strategic manipulation, designed to position Robyn as the only wife Kody could truly trust. Consider the historical pattern that has emerged over the years. Robyn has consistently positioned herself as helpful while systematically becoming Kody's only confidant. When there were conflicts between Kody and his other wives, Robyn was somehow always involved in the resolution process, always the voice of reason, always the one Kody turned to for advice and support. By inserting herself into every family crisis, she became indispensable to him, while simultaneously gathering information about the vulnerabilities and missteps of her sister wives. The timing of events during the Catfish period is particularly suspicious when examined closely. Robyn's legal marriage to Kody happened immediately after Meri's divorce. The adoption of her children cemented her family's permanent connection to Kody. And Meri's complete isolation from the family unit happened in the exact same window. These events did not occur in random sequence. They happened in a pattern that progressively strengthened Robyn's position while weakening everyone else's. Coincidence stretches only so far before it starts looking like coordination. Sources who have analyzed the family dynamics over the years point to a consistent thread running through every major conflict. One researcher who has studied the Brown family extensively noted that Robyn always seems to emerge from family crises with an enhanced relationship to Kody, while everyone else's relationship deteriorates. Another longtime viewer put it more bluntly, saying it is like watching someone run a decade-long campaign to become the only wife, and the Catfish scandal was the opening move. What if Robyn's meddling in the Catfish situation was never about helping Meri at all? What if the surveillance, the reporting to Kody, the so-called interventions were all designed to achieve a specific outcome? The theory suggests that Robyn saw an opportunity in Meri's vulnerability and exploited it masterfully. She got to look like the loyal, supportive sister wife who tried to help, while simultaneously ensuring that Meri would never recover her position in Kody's heart. That is not sisterhood. That is sabotage disguised as support. And the long-term consequences of that sabotage have been absolutely catastrophic for everyone except Robyn. The destruction that followed the Catfish scandal has been systematic and complete. Kody Brown announced her departure in 2021 after years of feeling like she was invisible in her own marriage. Janelle Brown followed in 2022, finally acknowledging that her relationship with Kody had deteriorated beyond repair. And Meri, the woman at the center of the Catfish scandal, finally announced her split from Kody in January 2023, ending a marriage that had been dead in everything but name for nearly a decade. Every single one of these departures follows a similar pattern. The women described feeling like outsiders in their own family, while Robyn remained Kody's clear and obvious favorite. They talk about being dismissed, ignored, and made to feel that their needs and concerns did not matter. They describe watching Robyn receive treatment from Kody that they themselves were denied, attention and affection that seemed reserved exclusively for the newest wife. The resentment and hurt in their statements is palpable, and it all traces back to the fundamental dysfunction that took root during the Catfish era. Sources close to the family describe the Catfish scandal as patient zero in the destruction of the Brown family. One insider said it was the moment when Kody decided he only had to be a husband to one wife and everyone else was optional. Another person familiar with the dynamics noted that after the Catfish situation, Kody never really tried with Meri again, and eventually that pattern extended to Kody and Janelle as well. The scandal gave Kody permission to check out, and Robyn's involvement ensured that he never checked back in. What makes this timeline particularly tragic is how unpreventable all of it was. If the Catfish situation had been handled with compassion and understanding, recognizing Meri as a victim of manipulation rather than a perpetrator of betrayal, the family might have healed and moved forward. Instead, Kody and Robyn chose to weaponize the scandal, using it as justification for years of emotional punishment and neglect. The 3 marriages that eventually collapsed all cite feeling like lesser wives compared to Robyn, and that hierarchy was cemented during the Catfish aftermath. Tomorrow's episode promises to finally examine these competing versions of events under intense scrutiny. The tell-all format forces confrontation that regular episodes allow participants to avoid. Meri's perspective, Robyn's defense, and Kody's aggressive stance will all be tested against each other. And for viewers who have spent a decade watching this family implode, there is a certain grim satisfaction in knowing that the truth, whatever it turns out to be, is finally going to be dragged into the light. The question everyone is asking is whose version of events will actually hold up when examined closely. So here we are, folks, facing the ultimate question that this tell-all forces every viewer to confront. Was Robyn Brown a concerned sister wife who genuinely tried to help Meri navigate an impossible situation, or was she a master manipulator who exploited vulnerability for strategic advantage? The answer you believe probably says as much about your perception of this family as it does about the actual evidence. But the evidence is becoming increasingly difficult to interpret charitably toward Robyn. Consider what we know for certain. Robyn admitted to watching Meri's online conversations unfold. She admitted to reporting what she observed to Kody. She admits she confronted Meri about the situation. And the ultimate outcome of all this so-called help was the complete destruction of Meri's relationship with Kody and her position within the family. Robyn can claim pure intentions until she runs out of breath, but the results speak for themselves. A sister wife reached out for support during her darkest hour, and what she got instead was surveillance, reporting, and a decade of being treated as untrustworthy. The reason this 10-year-old drama still matters is that it exposed the fundamental dysfunction that would eventually tear the Brown family apart completely. The Catfish scandal revealed that there were different tiers of wives in this family, different standards of loyalty and forgiveness, different consequences depending on who you were and how close you stood to Robyn. Christine saw it, Janelle saw it, Meri lived it, and eventually all 3 of them walked away rather than continue accepting their designated positions as lesser partners in a marriage that had room for only one favorite. Robyn's response to questions about her behavior is perhaps the most telling element of this entire saga. She does not acknowledge any possibility that she might have contributed to the family's breakdown. She does not recognize that her actions, regardless of intention, had devastating consequences for her sister wife. She simply declares herself innocent and expects everyone to accept her verdict. That level of defensive certainty in the face of overwhelming evidence is not the behavior of someone who is confident in their innocence. It is the behavior of someone who cannot afford to examine their own actions too closely. So where do you stand after hearing all of this? Do you believe Robyn Brown when she insists she had Meri's back during the Catfish scandal and did absolutely nothing wrong? Or do you think she used the situation to secure her position as Kody's only wife while her sister wife was being dragged through public humiliation and private devastation? The evidence is there. The timeline is clear. The pattern is undeniable. Drop your theory in the comments. Are you Team Robyn or Team Meri? Because after a decade of conflicting narratives, this tell-all might finally give us the answers that the Brown family has been hiding from viewers and possibly from themselves.